All right, welcome into the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. We are here with a new friend, Mr. Clyde Calhoun. Sir, I really appreciate you being here with us. And Root Idea is a very interesting company. Why don't you take 30 seconds, tell the people where you're coming from and who Root Idea is.
Hey, thanks a lot. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I've really enjoyed the podcast, and so I'm excited to be a guest. So again, Clyde Calhoun, our company Root Idea really focuses on helping organizations confidently navigate AI business transformation. And so it's everything from the technology and technology deployment itself to all the work outside the algorithms, everything from initial assessment to strategy development, change management, policy and governance, and then also educating employees on how to use the tools most effectively.
Awesome. So you're like a consulting firm, but you help from cradle to grave, or I guess in AI speak, it would be, from idea inception, into full deployment and then active monitoring after that.
Exactly. Everything that you need to be successful with AI. And, the one thing that we found is that there's so much focus on the technology itself, but the real work in terms of what makes AI successful, all the things outside of that, is investing in people and doing all the change management work to make sure that the initiative really thrive. And to be honest, those are the types of things that they've always been what makes enterprise transformation successful.
Yeah, so I definitely want to have a big discussion on the change management side. But before we dive into that, I think it might be fair for the audience for you to define what AI is. I think we might all have our own definition of what AI is or what we think it is, whether it's robots or algorithms or large language models, because that's probably what most of us are familiar with these days. But could you take a moment and just describe what
Sure.
your definition of AI is and maybe AI in business?
Well, and the thing is, most people when they think about AI, they think very narrowly of the generative AI solutions that are out there, the Chat GPTs or the Copilots, the Geminis, those types of things. But AI is really this larger landscape that encompasses so many different things. Natural language processing, computer vision, machine learning. There's a whole subset of technologies that really allow a different type of interaction with programming effectively. And so I think about AI in the broadest sense of all the tools, the underpinnings that allow you and I just to have a conversation with the program and get it to do what we want it to do.
Well, we're in the construction space, so most of us are AI novices. But really, you start talking AI and machine learning and algorithms. We really want to like clam up and run away from that. So let's talk for a minute, like specific cases in like the concrete construction type of world. What is it that you're seeing people are benefiting from in the AI space?
Yeah, there are quite a few things actually. There's work on looking at mix optimization for one. I mean that's an area where you look at how you can tweak formulations so that you can improve workability, for example, or improve the transport time. So those are some cases that are out there. The other thing I touch on as well is looking at AI for kiln optimization as you look at converting limestone into clinker. I mean, energy is a big focus right now. It's a huge cost for manufacturers. And so leveraging the technology to really, look at how you can optimize your kiln and also reduce your CO2 emissions, that's a really exciting area. There's some studies that have been out recently where efficiency has improved by up to 10% in some cases by the adoption of AI. And then you get on the realm of like supply chain and what you can do there with inventory optimization and demand forecasting. Just a ton of different use cases that are out there. I know we can unpack some of those, but that can kind of get the ball rolling.
Supply chain is such a like big phrase. Can you expound on that for me?
Yeah. So, and on the supply chain side, I think it starts with that demand forecasting piece because I think the biggest challenge for many companies are, do we have the right materials? Do we have everything flowing? Can we produce to meet demand and, be able to meet that demand, when it's right there. And so that part of being able to optimize your manufacturing process so that you can support the orders that are coming in, that's a part of it. And then on the larger sense, you think about managing your trucks effectively so that you're saving fuel and you don't have a lot of dead time. Or you think about how you bring in your raw materials and really optimizing the flow of those so that you can keep your costs manageable. All that's really kind of encompassed in that supply chain bucket.
But maybe you can help me out a little bit. I'm not really sure how the AI is going to help me keep enough 57 stone and enough cement in the silo any faster than we're doing it right now, or any better than we are now. Except the only thing I can think of is like if the manager just isn't there that day, like they had to call out sick with an emergency. Like there's a backup system that's helping out, but I'm just failing to see how the AI would come in and really bolster like the supply chain for like a construction company or a ready mix company.
Yeah, so it's all about getting the timing right for everything in terms of the sequencing. So if you're thinking about aggregate and getting that where you need it at the right time, a lot of that really depends on understanding all the factors that might affect demand. And so the cool thing about AI is that it can look at your data internally and what your historical patterns have been for consumption of materials and when you need them. But it can also look at outside factors, what's happening with the weather, what's happening with events that are taking place, what's happening with consumer sentiment in general, and folding all that data in to give you a better prediction of what demand's really going to do. And of course, if you know what to expect, then you can really plan around getting your materials in the right timing so that you can be successful. And like I said, only a couple percentage difference in those types of things can be huge for many companies.
Yeah, you actually hit on something I think is maybe the biggest key in all this AI stuff, and it's one of the things that's going to be really difficult for concrete construction companies to be able, in my opinion, to be able to adopt some of these AI technologies, and that is the data. Garbage in, garbage out is the mantra in the AI world, but even beyond that, what if you don't have any garbage to even put in there in the first place? So a lot of these construction companies and concrete companies specifically been working on like paper tickets and paper trails. So it's not really a digitized system or a digitized library. And the inputs that are coming in, I'll just say concrete for a moment. Like the rock coming in from the quarry, there's no digitized record of that. It's a printout. The mill certification for the cement is a printout. So if you're trying to do mixed design optimization, none of that data is being entered. None of it's being recorded. You don't have thousands of historical digital files to pull from to say, yes, now we can predict going forward. How do you overcome those types of challenges?
Yeah, and those are no doubt challenges for sure. And like I said, I don't think the concrete industry is alone in that regard. The vast majority of companies across the world have a lot of unstructured data, or to your point, no data on key processes. And so that's one of the things that we often talk about in terms of AI readiness. Even if you're not investing in the technology itself right now, you need to start thinking about how you start collecting information that can therefore be used on follow-on decisions as you incorporate AI into it. But the other cool thing too about AI and some of the technology that's out there is some of it is independent of historical data because these are learning algorithms effectively. So if you're starting to look at, say, again, a manufacturing operation, and you're giving it now inputs, you don't have any historical data, but you're now starting to feed it inputs. It will learn what does good production look like. How do I need to tweak these parameters in order to be successful? And it will learn on the fly. And then some of it doesn't even require having hard inputs into the system. I mentioned computer vision earlier. There's an interesting study that I read actually coming out of Australia where they're basically using a computer visioning system looking at concrete workability in the field effectively. And so the AI is looking at that and giving the judgment of an operator and saying, hey, this is ready and ready to go. And so I think that's pretty cool. The fact that, hey, you can just put a camera up there effectively and let it kind of learn on the fly. And over time, it starts to make decisions on, hey, this, we're ready to go. Boom, let's pour it. So the technology is evolving rapidly. And I think it's really all about getting started more so than anything else, because no one is really ready in the truest sense. Even if you've got great data, I mean, there's so many other things that you need to think about. No one's truly ready.
That reminds me of like parenting. Everybody's like, I don't know if I'm ready to be a parent. It's like, bro, you're never ready, and nobody knows what to do. You're just doing your best.
That's exactly right. Good analogy.
Computer vision. When in business school we had a discussion about computer vision, and I really liked the. It was a funny story, funny anecdote about they thought they had trained this AI using computer vision to determine whether a dog was a husky or a wolf, and it would compare photos of a husky versus a wolf, and it got it right by the end of the training. It was right 100% of the time until they gave it a photo of a husky out in the woods.
Mm,
And so it turned out it hadn't been identifying the dog, it was identifying the external environment around the animal. If it saw a couch and a plush toy, it was a husky. If it saw a tree and a rock, it was a wolf. And those types of things are really funny to me. Hopefully we can, if computer vision comes to the concrete world, fresh concrete, holy cow, that'd be fascinating. You had a camera like inside the drum of the ready mix truck or whatever, and it's looking at it as it spins, can tell you if it's good or not. That'd be pretty sick.
Yeah. You touched on something that I like to kind of go back to that dog example, because that's the way I think about a lot of these AI, large learning models, LLMs, so like the Chat GPTs or the Llamas or Geminis. It really is like getting a dog that's been pre-trained, with the obedience training. So, yeah, out of the box, you get these things that you can tell it to sit, you can tell it to roll over, tell it to fetch. But even though it's had that pre-training, the more you interact with it, the more it gets to know what you like, what you don't like. And then you can also teach it to do some specialty things. So like if you want a seeing eye dog, or if you want a drug sniffing dog, or whatever the case may be, there's extra training involved that you can give it to help it do what you need it to do. And so the same thing is true with AI, is that a lot of these things out of the box, they have some level, they may not do everything that you want it to do, but you can really train them to be what you need them to be if you put some work into it. And I see so often that folks are trying out these tools, they play with it for 5 minutes, and they're like, it doesn't work. It's not giving me the answer that I want. But that's because they haven't put the time in to really understand how they can help and what they need to do for it to learn to serve you better.
But do you use them in your daily life? I'll give you an example of one I use on a near daily basis. I'll either ask ChatGPT or Cloud or now Grok. I used Grok yesterday actually to devise for me a hard math problem for a third grader. So my daughter is in third grade. She's highly proficient in math at her level. And so it's hard for me to always know like what's hard or too hard. So these LLMs really help me with that, and I give her a problem every day so that she can earn time on her electronic devices. And so it's just a fun way for me to use the AIs. Is there any type of program that you're using on a daily basis, whether in your personal life or professional life?
Yeah, I mean, I probably use I use ChatGPT a lot. I mean, it's just a nice general purpose tool. And as a side note, I think about those type of general LLMs as kind of like handyman type tools. I mean, if you need a deck, or done on your house, or repair some drywall, you call a handyman. But if you need to rewire your house, you call an electrician. If you've got a big HVAC issue, you call it an HVAC specialist. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of specialty tools that are out there for everything from M&A evaluation, or looking at pricing optimization. I mean, there's so many, or AI agent creation. There's so many different things that are out there. But Chat GPT, I use that as a good general tool. Perplexity is one that for research, which is a great tool that tends to be more accurate on that front. And then I've got my short list of other things that are out there that help me with different tasks. But the thing that I would say too, though, kind of flipping it to the business side, businesses need to think about how they can create the safe space within their organizations for employees to try out some of these tools. Yeah, and it's a different environment than I think historically, where you've had like your IT department define, okay, we're going to use this tool across the board. I think we're in an era now where employees are trying to figure out what works best for them, what creates the most value. And so creating that a framework where employees can try out this new tool that they think might help them with generating or doing customer segmentation, or helping with looking at energy efficiency within the building, or predictive maintenance. I mean, that's the space that leaders need to create for their employees.
I'm gonna have to take a detour from the business side, and we're gonna go back to another personal side. Joey, have you looked at using one of these types of like Chat GPTs or Grok or one of these guys to help you find the perfect turkey hunting spot on public land that normal people don't know about? Because you could like superpower that search with AI and have your own little spot.
Yeah, I've asked it a handful of things. There's no limits. I'd be anxious to see my search history or my question history for ChatGPT, just because of the random thoughts that come through my mind at any given point during the day. But yeah, it's really good for. I've used it for like podcast topics. Like I help another group of guys do a hunting podcast, and sometimes it's good to just have ChatGPT like come up with a list of topics, to talk about, some things that I may not even think about, especially like in the moment, when we're recording, some thoughts could escape. I do use it for that, just to have like a few bullet points or whatever to hit on. But yeah, you can get as intricate, as detailed as you want to, as far as finding properties or anything else. It's just going to comb the World Wide Web. It's going to go through those, those page 20 of Google that never see the light of day. When a human is interacting with the Google search engine, it's going to search all those too. So it is helpful for, you name it. It's helpful for a little bit of everything.
Well, I want to talk back on the business side of it about a couple of resources that I really favor. One of them is a book called Artificial Intelligence, an Executive Guide to Make AI Work for Your Business. And it was published by the Tiny Tech Guides. So the author of this specific guide is a guy named David Sweiner. And what I really liked about his book is that it gives like a 7-step process for how to go from ideation to implementation and monitoring. And the number one thing that he really touches on, like once you figure out what you want your AI to do and what your goal is supposed to be, is change management. Just got to get it right. You have to get it right. And if anybody listening to this, like any of the managers and company owners that are listening to this have experience with change management, you know firsthand exactly how hard that can be. And even when you think you've got all the right people involved or you're doing all the right things, it's so easy to overlook something that that makes you take 3 steps back, have to reevaluate even work you've already done, not just to mention fill in the gaps. But I'd like you to talk a moment, Clyde. Like, that's something that your company is really going to be helping folks with if they're doing an AI implementation, is the change management project, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it. To be successful, there are a bunch of different steps that you need to cover. And it starts with just that assessment piece of really understanding what's happening in your organization today and the attitudes that employees have about it. Because, there are a lot of people that they're worried about AI. They have this concern that AI is going to take my job, and how is that going to affect the way that I work going forward. And so that's where that change management piece becomes important, because if you're not engaging employees throughout the conversation, not just at the end, but throughout the course of developing the strategy and really understanding what responsible use looks like, and then building out the capabilities and mapping out how roles will change over time and what you have in terms of new expectations for employees. If you don't have that engagement throughout the entire process, that's where a lot of times companies will go astray. So that piece of it, really getting clear about the vision for the organization, where you're going with AI, enrolling employees in that vision and driving it forward, and really aligning everything about the organization in terms of metrics and goals to the way that you celebrate success, the way that you incentivize people to be successful, all those things underpinning this change management effort. It is critically important. Interestingly enough, the majority of AI projects fail not because the technology is bad or because the technology is immature, but they fail because people don't pay enough attention to the change management portion of it. And we see oftentimes that there'll be large companies that will have rolled out Copilot 365 across their enterprise, and they're struggling with getting employees to actually use it, or at least use it beyond just email and generating some reports. And a lot of it often comes down to they have not done the work up front to really look at, is the strategy, is AI complementing the business strategy, and have we invested enough in the people to be able to manage this change effectively? And that's where we come in and really help a lot of organizations out.
Touch on that a little bit about maybe each person doesn't understand how the AI is going to benefit them, or even worse, they're scared that AI is going to replace them. Are you seeing that when you're helping folks through these transitions?
Yeah, absolutely. And as leaders as well, because the thing about it is that the pace of change with AI is happening so rapidly. That has a couple different effects with just the leadership. So number one, they're not even sure what's possible with AI. And so they're not sure how it can apply to their organization and where they could create value from within their business. And then the second piece is that there's so many different options that are out there around AI solutions. I mentioned before, hundreds of thousands of AI tools that are out there. They don't even know where to start, to get going. And so that is a challenge from a leadership perspective. And then throughout an organization, yes, you have that fear of, well, hey, I know this thing is sweeping across the company or the country, and I know that it has a potential to impact what I do, but I haven't heard anything from my leaders about what they're doing or where they're going or how it's going to transform our company. And in the absence of information, there's just a natural tendency for people to assume the worst. And so that's the biggest challenge around getting people comfortable. And we see that all the time, that once the clients actually kind of establish that vision and start talking to employees, everyone just feels a whole lot better about it. And people start to get excited about the technology and what it could do for them and how it can accelerate what they're doing and just enhance their productivity, take some of the stuff that they hate doing off of their plate, giving it to AI and really allowing them to focus on the things that they enjoy doing and are really good at, the more strategic things that are out there.
So if I can sum that up just a little bit, it would be that you see, and you correct me if I'm saying this wrong. If I summarize that, you see AI as being a helper to make you more productive and better at your job rather than a replacement to come in and take your job. That would be your overall sentiment.
Yeah, with a qualifier, because there are a number of ways that the technology can help you be better in your job and free up your bandwidth to focus on the things that really add value. But that's not to say that as time goes on, the expectations for what people are delivering won't change. And honestly, I still think one of the best differentiators in terms of humans versus machines is true creativity and innovation. AI does a fantastic job of generating ideas and things within the framework of what's already been defined. Humans are great at looking outside the box and truly coming up with innovative new ideas. And so I think you're going to see a shift in terms of the expectations for employees of doing more of this thought leadership piece of trying to break outside the box and AI kind of taking the place of doing the things that are more repetitive, that are known, but also within a more defined framework, for lack of a better way of putting it. I think almost everybody's job will change. There will be some jobs that are frankly going to be eliminated over time from our point of view.
Glad we're going to clip that, Joey. That last 5 seconds, we're going to clip that. AI is taking all your jobs, says Clyde Calhoun. All right, timestamp that. Okay, so just joking. So the idea that AI cannot create from something new. Do you really believe that? I would.
I say in the framework of what's already been defined.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I want to push back just a second. So the new DeepSeek R1 that came out and the new Grok, they both have reasoning models that are built into them. And I saw a prompt that was asking for something novel, and it came up with ideas that maybe they weren't really novel, but it seemed novel. And so, would you say that what I saw was maybe disparate connections being made that I haven't seen before? So it seemed novel to me. Would that be probably a more accurate description of what I experienced?
Yeah, I mean AI, and as I know you know, Paul, AI works on kind of a probability perspective. So if you ask it for something novel, it will throw out something randomly out there to create something novel, based on the prompt instruction. But as you think about just truly breakthrough thinking outside of what has been considered before, humans are still better at that. It doesn't mean that AI isn't going to come up with a one off on there, but I think consistently humans do better job at really breakthrough thinking, for lack of a better way of putting it.
We should qualify that actually. Some humans, when you got guys like me and Joey, that we're a little bit lower on the IQ scale, right? So we gotta qualify that. Maybe smart guys like you are better at that creation.
Well, the one thing I would say on that is I do believe that creativity is a skill just like public speaking or anything else. And even if you don't naturally have that, you can develop it. And so that's the thing that I would say for your listeners out there is that start sharpening the saw on that one, because I do think it becomes more valuable over time, and you can be creative.
Talking about like different types of thinking, like divergent thinking and different ways of being creative. Used to play games with my daughter about that too. Just not because I thought I was being clever or smart, it's because like we needed to waste time and I needed to keep her entertained. How many different types of soda can you name? I didn't even realize I was trying to get her to be creative thinking. But one thing I wanted to touch on, another book that I love, The Business Case for AI by Kavita Ganesan. She really harps on three things, and I think the third pillar that she harps on when it comes to what does a successful AI initiative look like. The third one, oftentimes, I could imagine would be overlooked by folks in upper management. And I want to list the three pillars just briefly. Pillar one would be model success. So whatever model you've implemented, you don't have to design it from scratch. It could be off the shelf, but whatever model you've implemented, is it doing the thing that you expected that model to do? Number two would be the business success. Now that the model is doing what it's supposed to do, are you getting an ROI on that? We can talk a little bit more on ROI in just a second. But pillar three will be user success. Are the folks in your organization that are using the thing you spent all this time and money dreaming up and implementing, are they having success? And so how does Root Idea sort of go about monitoring whether the users inside of a company or users is in a customer base are actually enjoying the AI that's being deployed?
Yeah. So, and first of all, with respect to the model, I totally agree with that. I mean, whether you're looking at the model success, business success, or again, looking at an employee success in terms of how they're feeling and adopting the tool, I think that's it. And for our company, we really look at things holistically like that too. I mean, every problem has a technical component, a business component, and a people component. And if you get all three of those right, you're generally going to be successful in whatever you do, whether that's with AI or you name the situation. If you get the three of those right, you're absolutely going to nail it. But from our perspective, what we do is we have a lot of employee conversations. We do that either with surveys, engagement surveys to really understand not just who's using the tools and how they're using it, but also how they're feeling about it and the culture about it. Those types of survey assessments are a great way to kind of get the pulse on what's happening in the organization. And we do a lot of focus group work as well, particularly up front, as we try to understand the dynamics of what's happening in the relationship. Because honestly, in most organizations, there are a whole host of concerns, not just around AI, but with other things happening within the organization. And if you don't, recognize that, hey, not only are they concerned about AI and how it's going to replace my job, they're also concerned about, the profitability over the last couple quarters and where things have been going and what does that mean. And they're tying all this information together. But ultimately, what we find with AI is that when AI is implemented well and you've been engaged employees throughout the process, they're not only more excited about it, but they start to view AI more as a partner, or so, or partner, tool/partner, more so than a threat. And it's really interesting because, and I know you've seen the some of the data on this, but people start to build up attachments to their AI, agent, lack of a better way of putting it, when it's giving them the information they need regularly. It's doing it in a way that's always empathetic and attempting to meet their needs. I mean, there's a connection that's being built, and this is something that's being generally observed out there. But it's pretty cool to see that, hey, you can have now an AI coworker that's out there that is really helping you get your job done. So I just kind of leave it with that, is that the people side is critically important.
Well, and if you have one of these agents or chatbots that are like private to you in a sense that like it's helping you with your work or your questions, they can really talk to you like they're your friend, and it is they're almost a little too good at it.
Yeah. And interesting story about that, because I was actually demoing a tool the other week. There's this perception that to have AI agents in your organization, you need to be this huge Fortune 500 company that is exorbitantly expensive. But there are really agents that you can set up within a day for your organization. This one that I was demoing the other week, effectively you can set it up that it can go out and make sales calls on your behalf. You basically, give it access to your website. You can upload presentations that you might normally use to train people, and it'll go out and effectively cold call. And it'll be like, "Hi, I'm Tess from Acme. I saw that you clicked on our site and would like to see if you had any questions about what we're doing." It can go off script. It can answer whatever, interact like a real person, and you can do that for the fraction of a cost for going out and hiring someone. So it is pretty amazing how fast the technology has advanced.
I'm just glad this is a work podcast, so I don't have to ask you about the implications of all these AI girlfriends that are about to pop up.
Yeah, that's funny, but that's one of the concerns right now is people building up stronger emotional attachments to AI than actual human relationships. So that's a scary piece in and of itself.
I mean, we're all three guys here talking. We've all had those moments when we were young men and we, didn't know if we could ever get a girl's attention to come and talk to us. Man, I'm so glad I didn't have a robot I could talk to. That man, who knows where the next generation is going to end up? Joey, what do you think about this? When you hear all this AI stuff, and obviously Clyde and I are over here on cloud nine, giddy about wanting to see welcoming our new AI overlords. But what do you think when you hear about all this stuff?
The AI girlfriends really piqued my interest. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I immediately thought my immediate reaction was that I bet an AI girlfriend would buy less stuff on Amazon than my wife.
Funny you say that, Joey, because now
No,
with OpenAI's latest release of Operator, which came out a few weeks ago, it can actually go out and do tasks for you. So it can book reservations, it can buy stuff for you. Now it will ask for your permission before you buy, but I can foresee that this will evolve to the point where it'll just go out and do it on your behalf because because it's thinking of you and it wants to buy you something nice. It'll go out and do that.
I mean, it's checking a few boxes now. It asks permission before it buys something. I mean, does it have a mute button as well? I mean, I may be all in on this thing now.
That's great, man. That's great. One of the things that, you know, our audience is going to hear this and think, oh, we're quality control guys at a construction company. What in the world is this AI stuff about for, we're not the business managers. We're not looking at numbers on a spreadsheet. We're out here doing the real work, getting dirty out in the field. Why should I be interested in AI as one of these guys out in the field?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think everybody's going to have some benefit from AI. Again, even if you're out in the field, think about not having to wait around as much on job sites, or just thinking about how you can get all those back office things that you still have to do done a little bit easier. Whether that's the reporting or paperwork. I mean, all that stuff that could go away. So I do think there's something in it for everybody. At the same time, I mean, I still believe as well, in a larger sense, that no matter what type of business that you're in, there are going to be some elements that are going to improve your bottom line. And I think about the AI solutions that are available out there right now on pricing optimization. I know 1 or 2 or 3% more on your pricing across the full year. That's significant for most companies, and so just being able to take advantage about that, even if it's not necessarily helping you directly pour concrete, there is a value in it, and it's worth your while to really invest in those solutions and take a good look at it.
Well, so there was a paper I saw last year presented at, it was either at NRMCA or ACI. I apologize, and the researcher I'm blanking on his name at the moment, so he'll have to forgive me. He was using computer vision to monitor. He attached a camera to a drone, flew the drone along spans of bridges that had been poured, and it was recording the bridge, and then it would use that data compared with control scans to say, is that bridge deteriorating? At what level is it deteriorating? Do we need to replace it? Was it, given the external conditions, what's the expected lifespan remaining on this bridge? And like those types of use cases for a guy in the field, I could see would be very fascinating. Now, this specific model, I don't know that it was trained enough, but let's just talk about the concept. Like the concept to me was fascinating. And I think if I'm a guy in the field, especially if I'm an inspector, and you're telling me I can just fly a drone around this thing and it's going to pick out, compare it to the blueprint and compare it to historical information and say whether these guys are doing the thing that they're supposed to do. And it may not do your job for you, but it could help you focus on the problem areas.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you raised a really good point, too, that I think the use cases for AI are only limited by the imagination of the people that are already in the industry and embedded in the processes right now. I mean, as just an outside expert, I can't come in and necessarily tell you that, hey, you need to use drones to look at these spans and evaluate that. But if you say that I would like to do that, I can certainly help you execute on whatever it is that you can think of. And the cool thing about where the technology already is and where it's going is that most things that you can dream up are probably doable, at least to some extent, and they'll certainly get better over time. But that's where I think it's important for your listeners really to kind of zero in on what would I like AI to do. And I want to touch on one other thing around that too, is that I know with respect to operations, there's kind of this natural inclination to say that, yeah, we've had computer control on our process for for ages, for the last several decades. What's different about AI? And I do want to touch on that because the real difference there is, as you look at AI operating your process, is that in the past people have defined what the set points are for a given operation. If it goes below this, then it triggers that action. If it goes above that, it's going to trigger that action. What AI is doing is basically saying we're not going to necessarily abide by those set points. We're going to let AI define what the set point should be and how the set points all interact together to figure out what's truly optimum. And that's very different, basically turning over what the set points are to a program that's basically figuring it out and learning on the fly and over time creating better decisions. That's something very different. So I wanted to share that part too as we're talking about use cases around AI.
Every cement and concrete director and owner that just heard that, their stomachs just dropped. They're thinking about all the lawsuits as AI changes the specifications on everything. So, man, you're lighting it up today, Mr.
Yeah.
Clyde. I got to tell you.
Well, hey, if these are the types of questions that are out there. Ultimately, I think not only in concrete but across the board, people have to think differently about what's possible and things done, how we get things done. It's not a matter of necessarily breaking the tradition of what people have been doing, but really just encouraging people to think more broadly about what might be possible and how we could leverage the technology, to really achieve some very different outcomes in a positive way. So. Yeah,
Brian, we love it. But I have to get one more question out to you, and this is a tough question. So, and I'm being serious. You've been very candid today, and I want this last question, although it's a tough question, answer to the best of your ability, and that is surrounding ROI on these AI projects. And a lot of companies, in my readings, have been very excited about the AI. They've implemented the AI, and then now they're looking back, going, okay, so when are we going to get our return on this AI? And there are some great use cases out there where they got returns almost immediately. Wells Fargo and Visa and these guys are monitoring hundreds of millions of transactions looking for fraud, and they're able to detect fraud much faster and therefore eliminating that waste and abuse from their system. The ROI was almost immediate. But for construction companies and for some of the companies that you work with, what's that ROI landscape looking right? Are you achieving what you would say a reasonable result? Could you just talk through that for us for a little bit?
Yeah, so more generally across the U.S., ROI is kind of hovering at around 5 or 6%, for most of the AI projects that are there. But understand that is, very polarized from the perspective of you've got a lot of AI projects that are at zero or negative ROI, and then you've got a smaller number that are on the top end that are 15-20% ROI. The weighted average is around 5 or 6%, but there's a lot of variability, and it all goes back to that work that you need to do to make your initiative successful. All the work outside the algorithms, as I mentioned earlier. When you put the time in up front to think about how you can engage employees, and particularly this piece on the strategy, that whatever you're planning on doing with AI truly complements your business strategy with a focus on bottom line impact, that's where you're really going to see those higher ROIs. Again, we see this all the time. There are too many companies that they feel like they need to do something in AI, and so they just deploy a tool. They haven't done any work with employees. They haven't done anything on strategy. They've done very little on change management, and they're wondering why they've not really gotten the result that they had on the business case slide. And that's exactly it. You've got to put the work in. But the one thing I would say is that for those companies that are willing to put the work in, they've been wildly successful, and they're investing even more in growing the technology over time, because this is not a one-shot deal. You have to think about AI as an ongoing investment because the technology will advance over time. And you have to think about how do you incorporate that into your overall business strategy.
Sometimes it feels like the technology is advancing weekly. So yes,
Yeah.
over time is a proper phrase. Clyde, I really appreciated you answering all our questions today in this conversation. Joey, did you have anything else for him before we let him get back to his real job?
Nothing for me, Clyde. Really appreciate you coming on. I'm excited to see what Root Idea has in store for us coming up in the future.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Hey, before we jump off, why don't you let people know where they can find you and contact you if they got more questions about what AI can do for their business?
Sure thing. You can contact me directly at clyde.calhoun@rootidea.ai. You can also check out our website, rootidea.ai, if you want to learn more about the technology and how we can help. And then the last thing I'd put out there is that we host calls regularly with groups of business executives on different topics related to AI. If you'd like to join us, you can reach out directly to me or follow me on LinkedIn and get the info. But we'd love to have you join one of those conversations.
Fantastic. I love it. All right, man. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Take care, guys.
See you. Bye.